My name is Harry Hubbard. Thank you for coming. And I first of all need to point out that everything you see here is true. This is a non-fiction presentation. And there's nothing here that I'm going to show you to lead you astray or to indicate anything that is not so or that I cannot back up. And first of all, I want to introduce to you my mascot. My mascot here, her name is Felicity. And I know that she's a female, and we'll go into that later. But her name is Felicity, and that's important. And Felicity is a word that we don't use very often in the English language these days because it means a phrase. And in modern day times, we get the name Felicia comes out of Felicity, and also Felix, like Felix the cat. Why do we have the name Felix for Felix the cat? And we're going to jump right in, and we're going to be going all over this country, and we're going to point out that there are labels for people. And if you believe that there were people here before Columbus, you are labeled a diffusionist. And I'm not sure when this word came about, probably in the mid-1970s, late 1970s. But there's all kinds of books from the 1800s where all these guys are obviously diffusionists. And if you're like me, and you feel like you can prove that there were presences here before Columbus, I am labeled a diffractionist. Well, I hope that when you leave here, or after you see this, that everyone is a diffractionist. And if you believe that Columbus was first here, well, what are you called? There's not really a name for it, so I invented one. It's called delusional. And that's my word for people who are, and your institutionalized anthropologists, archaeologists, and historians, this is what they are. They refuse to accept certain facts, and because they don't make sense, it doesn't fit the way that they think. So I call it delusional. And we're going to jump right into Diodorus Siculus. And this is from the Harvard Globe Classical Series. You'll see on the islands in the ocean which lie towards the west. And we'll see down here at where chapter 19 starts. But now that we have discussed what relates to the islands which lie within the Pillars of Hercules, we shall give an account of those which are in the ocean. For there lies out in the deep off Libya, which was the word for Africa, an island of considerable size, and situated as it is in the ocean, it is distant from Libya a voyage of a number of days to the west. Its land is fruitful, much of it being mountainous, and not a little being a level plain of surpassing beauty. And he goes on to talk about all of the beauty here, the crystal clear springs, the rivers, the mountains, every kind of fruit tree, every kind of beast imaginable. And down here at the bottom, and speaking generally, the climate of this island is so altogether mild that it produces in abundance the fruits of trees and other seasonal fruits for the larger part of the year. So it would appear that the island, because of its exceptional felicity, were a dwelling place of a race of gods and not men. In ancient times, this island remained undiscovered. And then it goes on to describe how the Phoenicians actually got here in some description. And there at the bottom, we'll pick up right here. The Phoenicians then, while exploring the coast outside the Pillars for the reasons we have stated, and while sailing along the shore of Libya, were driven by winds a great distance out into the ocean. And after being storm-tossed for many days, they were carried ashore on the island we mentioned above. And when they had observed its felicity, well, now what does felicity mean? Like I said earlier, it means a phrase. And it's important because this is a word that is used by many people in old times, in Greek and Latin, to describe things. Well, let's look at it. Felicity. The state of being happy, happiness, that which causes happiness, a source of happiness. And generally, happiness plentiful of food and for lack of nothing. That's where we get the word Felicity, and that's where the word Felicia and Felix come from. So a fat cat being named Felix, well, he has everything he wants, and that's how he is. All right, now, here we're going to look at some sites that are right near here. We're in this area right here, and you can see these rivers coming down through Connecticut. And up here you see several indicators here. And over here we'll see that they found inscribed stones, they found metal, ceramic, stone walls, stone forts, all through Connecticut and Massachusetts. And what we see on this one river, all of these settlements here, well, I would go so far as to suggest that this river here also has just as many sites. They are just not found. They're just not found. And I would say that the whole area had the same. And so they have found a world of things here, and right here in your backyard. And here's another map that shows more of the New Jersey and Pennsylvania line. And you can see the Delaware River here and the Susquehanna here. And the Susquehanna has had many, many sites found on it. But you see all these that are indicated here, inscribed stones, forts, walls, ceramic pieces, metal pieces. I would suggest that as many sites as you see right here, you also see them right here. But they're just not indicated. They're just not discovered yet. I think it's wide open for discovery. This whole area, this whole country is wide open for discovery. And this is from the Smithsonian. If you look down here, this map is reproduced from the Smithsonian Institution Bureau of American Ethnology, okay? So let's look at this a little bit. Now, I'm from Georgia, and you see that conglomerate of ancient settlements there. But this one river right here, the Oconee, in the middle of Georgia, has over 2,000 recorded sites, mounds, ancient villages, ancient walls. And you can clearly see that the river systems here were vast. The cities of them are just absolutely innumerable. Now let's start here at the delta of the Mississippi, and we're going to go up. This is the Red River here, covered with mounds and sites. And here we have the Bayou Pierre, and this is the Yazoo River here. And right here is the Arkansas River. Now right here, you'll notice that there's a conglomerate. There's another one, and another one, and another one, going up the Mississippi towards the north. And then at the confluence of the Mississippi and the Ohio, there's all kinds of ancient settlements in this area. All right, now we're going to come this way, and we're going to go down the Tennessee River. And the Holston and the French rivers come together to form the Tennessee. But all up and through here, in the far eastern, northeastern part of Tennessee, where these rivers are, there's a big conglomerate up in there. All right? And right here, down in lower Illinois, there are several settlements right here on the Kentucky side of the Ohio. And as we go farther up the Wabash River, you'll notice that right here is the Little Wabash that comes up into Effingham, and then there's a big conglomerate right in here. All right? And right here is the Illinois River, comes up through here and shows coming right into Lake Michigan there. And there's all kinds of settlements right here. And this right here is the Missouri. And you'll notice on the Smithsonian map, the conglomerate right here. Now, something peculiar about the state of Illinois is that 4/5 of its boundaries are natural. The two largest rivers in the nation, or on this continent, come together at Illinois and make up a big portion of its boundaries. And the Wabash River is very large also. And right along in here, is where the actual Cahokia mounds would be. See? And there's some dots, there's a little conglomerate in there. And we just want to see that at some point in time, this country was vastly populated. I mean, if, from my studies, if one of these dots on this map equals 10 mounds that they have found, that gives you some idea of just how many ancient settlements there are. And I want to introduce a strange theory of mine called the round earth theory. And that going from Diodorus Siculus writing about this land far to the west, which we'll see more about later, that perhaps are we so blind that ancient man couldn't step out his dwelling and look at the moon and see that's a circle, or look at the rising or setting sun and say, oh, that's round. That's round. Maybe this place is round also. So if we're going to deduce that ancient man or ancient civilizations, be them Romans, Greeks, Persians, Egyptians, whomever, perhaps they knew that the earth was round. And all this comes to full circle later on. And so from this, the clusters that you see here, we're going to explain more about them a little bit later. And we know that along several of these dots or settlements that are indicated, they have found copper, they found metal, they found bronze, they found things of unusual character, and really all over this country, not just where you see these settlements, but all over. Now, this is a book from the late 60s, early 70s or so, and I wanted to point this out because it's right in the backyard here. It's Buried Treasure Guide. All right, and this is called Treasure in the Lost Pharaoh's Cave, this little entry on page 45. Well, I wonder why they call it Pharaoh's Cave. And this is up in the farmer near Ticonderoga, New York, hastened toward his home. It was a rainy day in the early 1840s, and Peter Johnson had spent the past few hours in exploring the land near his home. Okay? The boy's father was in the barn. The boy runs up to him and says, "Pa, look what I found today," the young man said. His father paused and then said, "What is it?" He chided. "Another shiny rock or a gold mine?" The boy handed the circular disc to his father. The tarnished object was thick, rubbed smooth on one side, and etched on the other by an engraving of an elephantine creature. Well, supposedly the elephants were extinct here at that time. But let's see if I wonder if it could have been something like that. An elephant with some script on it, some kind of little disc or whatever. This is a replica. But I'm just throwing that out. Maybe it could have been something that had an elephant on it. Now, I want to introduce this fellow here. And this is a friend of ours. This is Jack McNabb. He is from Nova Scotia. And he is a discoverer. And his discoveries are now just starting to see the light of day. And what you'll see here are some Egyptian hieroglyphs. And Jack is finding ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs all over Nova Scotia and the east coast of Canada. He's looking for them. And this stone that they're carved in is extremely hard. It's difficult to carve anything into. But there remains several hieroglyphs here. And this is in the Bedford Basin. And the Bedford Basin is not too far away from an enigma called Oak Island. And there's been a lot of speculation concerning Oak Island of who made it or how it came to be. There's a tunnel system there lined with marble. And the folklore behind Oak Island is just absolutely stupendous. But this gives you some idea of the size of these Egyptian hieroglyphs. And here's what they look like closer up. If we start at the top here, and we come this way, and then we hit this right here, and then we come back over here, and then we're like going down this way, maybe somebody was putting something together. Now, I believe that this right here is the head of a bird. It's not finished or complete, but it looks to me like the back comes down here. Here's the other wing. That's where the wings touch together. But it's in half. It's not completed. And if it was, maybe it was deteriorated. But this is a glyph, and you can see it in the Wallace Budge Dictionary, page 943. That this appears to be the start of the cartouche of Queen of Queens Cleopatra. And it would have the cartouche around the whole thing here. And like I said, it would come down this way, like this, and then back, and then like that. And we see that type of style with other Egyptian hieroglyphs in this area. And in North America, too, inscribed. So I call this the Cobras of Columbus. Well, I guess I need to show you at least one cobra. This is an artifact that is probably about 2.5 inches in girth across the fan here. And this picture is taken as it was going through forensics, the forensic lab in Santa Fe. And unfortunately, I had a devastating fire in 2008, and this is salvaged. This picture is salvaged from that fire. And it is obviously a cobra. Well, where does it come from? This cobra was found down in Chihuahua, Mexico, about 200 miles south of the border, at an ancient building site, a dig where archaeologists were doing excavations. And so this being buried under a couple of feet of mud and soil at the buildings, it turned up, it went in for forensics, and it is real. It is a couple of thousand years old. And when you send something into forensics, they can give you a before-present date. They can't give you an exact date of manufacture. No one can do that. But they test it. They can see if it is a modern forgery. They can test for any kind of high RPM signs, what they call bilby scratches. And it's pretty thorough science. And especially when you get someone who's been doing it for so long. And when we expand a little bit, coming back into North America, there are sites where they have found all kinds of ancient coins. One that you can see online is the Falls of the Ohio, where this man years ago found over 100 Roman coins. And they show you online, you can see the Roman coins that they found there. They are not made up, they are not fake, they are for real. And they found over 100 of them there. And they have found other things all over. And some of the coins that they have found here are pretty rare. And so let's go to what Charles Fort says about some of the finds around Illinois. This is my Charles Fort reader. It's got 4 books in it. The Book of the Damned, New Lands, Wild Talents, and Lo. Lo is actually Lo and Behold. And the Book of the Damned is pretty much anything that does not make sense. Phenomena or out-of-place artifacts. It's like, damned Illinois, because we find this or we find that. And the scientists, they damned it. They damn it. And which means that they just slop it off. They say, oh, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense, so we'll just take it out of our picture completely. And so that's what happens with so many good pieces. Now, when we come down here, but even so, how could Roman coins have got to North America? Far in the interior of North America, or buried under accumulation of centuries of soil. Unless they did drop from wherever the first Romans came from. Well, that's pretty pretty significant, I would think. And then he records where a scientist in Georgia, Charles C. Jones, was examining 2 silver crosses that had been dug up out of a mound. And he goes on about what the 2 crosses are about and how they relate to each other. And now on one of them, it has these letters right here. And this is pretty good. This is pretty good. And in my opinion, these letters right here, be them Gallic, Latin, or broken Phoenician, Punic, that's wide open for a decipherment. Either heligrade or retrograde. Who knows? But he goes in and they're talking about the inscription. At the inscription, ourselves, and see that the letters said to be C and D are turned the wrong way. And that the letter said to be K is not only turned the wrong way, but is upside down. Well, we see that a lot in North America. And the script that we see here is all akin to each other. It is all very, very similar. And it's all very similar to Iberic script. It's similar to a vernacular form of Latin. And it has Punic characters. It has Latin characters. It has some Greek characters thrown in. It's just all over the place. It's like a Mediterranean influence. Now, here we're going to talk about a farmer who in Cass County, Illinois, picked up on his farm a bronze coin, which was sent to Professor Hilder in St. Louis, who identified the coin as Antiochus IV. An inscription said to be in ancient Greek characters translated as King Antiochus Epiphanes Illustrious, the Victorious. And we want to highlight the word victorious. We want to remember that. Because a lot of ancient coins have. Now, Cass County, Illinois is up the Illinois River. It's south of Peoria, more or less northwest of Springfield, the capital. And they have found all kinds of things on the Illinois River that don't make much sense. And here we go. It says that the copper coins, the characters are very much like those upon the Grave Creek stone, which I'm not going to go into. It's a very small stone with the same type of Iberic script on it. Well, at Antiochus IV, that would have a Greek influence for sure because he was Macedonian. But the script is somewhat the same. Now, right here we have in Connecticut in 1843 where this coin here was found, another copper coin. Well, they publicized it all back then. And a lot of these items are still recorded today and are still on record. It's just trying to find those documents and trying to study them. That's the issue. And what I have found about this country is that a lot is recorded, but it's their interpretation that really lacks significance because they just blow it off. All right, now, in early 1913, a coin said to be a Roman coin was reported as discovered in an Illinois mound. Okay, it was sent to Dr. Emerson of the Art Institute of Chicago. His opinion was that the coin is of the rare mintage of Domitianus. Now, you can say Domitianus. I always do hard T's in Latin. Emperor in Egypt. As to its discovery in an Illinois mound, Dr. Emerson disclaims responsibility. In other words, he just says it's a very rare Roman coin. And then Charles Fort goes on and says, well, why does it have to be a rare Roman coin? Why, it wasn't just good enough to see a normal or a common Roman coin in the mound. It had to be something of rare mintage. And down here again we have, in July of 1871, a letter was received from Mr. Jacob Moffat of Chillicothe, Illinois, enclosing a photograph of a coin, which he said had been brought up by him while boring from a depth of 120 feet. Now, how could a coin get 120 feet? Well, it could have been an opening in the earth, could have been an earthquake, could have been something, or it could have been somebody digging. Now, the archaeologists would have you believe that a man dug with a shovel a hole 120 foot deep, put the coin in there, and just hoped that 2,000 years down the road, someone would find it, as odd as that may seem. But Chillicothe, Illinois, is also up the Illinois River. Today, it is one of the northern suburbs of a really large town called Peoria. And on that coin, there appear Pisces and Leo. And here we go from the Chillicothe coin. Charles Fort is speculating, all right, and the coin is also examined by a man named Professor Leslie. And he goes, though it is ridiculous in a positive manner to give reasons, it is more acceptable to attempt reasons more nearly real than opposing reasons. This is some of Charles Fort's word circles. But Professor Leslie qualifies his notions. But his disregards are that there is nothing either French or Spanish about this coin. A legend upon it is said to be somewhere between Arabic and Phoenician without being either. So what he's saying is that the characters, seems like they come from the Mediterranean region, but they don't make any sense. Now, when I first went to Illinois, I went to the Indian Hill Museum, where the curator there, Norman Reed, was telling me, I was, indicating to him that we found, indications of a Mediterranean tomb nearby. Well, it's about 40 miles to the west of him. So he goes on telling me about his sister lives on a mound or a hill, and that hill used to be a Roman fort. I said, well, how could you tell? Well, there were stone walls and stuff. And I said, well, how'd you know it was Roman? He said, because I found this coin there. So he reaches into his cabinet and brings out a coin, and he hands it to me, and sure enough, it's Antonius Pius, heavily, heavily worn. And so I'm like, wow, that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. And in the mid-90s, I went with a friend who was a collector of artifacts. And we went to one of his friends' houses. He just dug up a huge metate, or grindstone, with several big grinders. Fantastic discovery. It was underneath a tree. And I was like fascinated with some nice stuff. And I told him, I said, if you ever find something that's unusual, I sure would like to see it. And he says, well, what's unusual to you? I said, something like a lion, a monkey, a palm tree, an elephant. And he jumps up and said, elephant? You want to see an elephant? I said, yes, of course, I'd love to see an elephant. He said, hang on. So we went back to his room, and he brought out an elephant about 1.25 inches high. And it was carved on some kind of bone, and it was an elephant just sitting up like this, with its trunk facing out in the front, just as clear as day. And he told me which mound he dug it up from, and it was 18 inches down into the soil. And that was pretty significant, if you ask me. It was a beautiful carve. You could see the muscles on this elephant. And so now we're going to look at something found in Maine. This is another picture of the coin found in Maine on the north shore of Moosehead Lake. And it comes from 6 feet down under. It has known provenance. There were witnesses, and this is a picture of it as it was going into forensics. They photograph artifacts, stuff like this many times. They go real close. They go down into it. And this is the coin here, and here's the forensic report and how these forensic reports are doing the findings. The metal is identified as bronze. with traces of silver and lead. Hydrous tin oxide coats the coin over its entire surface. Copper percentage averages 86%. Cupric oxide interdendritic formations are indicated. That's a fancy word for layered, by the way. Copper nitrate is indicated. Copper sulfate is indicated. These formations indicate 1,800 years of growth, accumulation, and deterioration of the reactive metals. This does not reflect an accurate manufacturing date. No modern tool signatures are indicated. No modern minting flaws are indicated. The coin was struck in an ancient method. This is a better picture of it, a little bit more clear. And you can see that the script starts here, goes around, comes up over here. You can see C-L-O, that's an S, kind of a broken sigma. And then you can see the characters up here. That's an old R, I-C. There's another C right there. And you see it's a man facing right. Most coins and artifacts, the person pictured on that artifact or coin are facing right. There are many that face left, but nothing in comparison to the number facing right. Now the reverse of the coin, I'm sorry, this is the only picture I've got of it, has what appears to be a hunter or a warrior of some description. And the script starts right in here and goes over this way. Seems to be some kind of god holding another god or a statue here. And there's this right here. Now, you can see the arm coming back here, and it appears that this could be a part of the whip or some kind of weapon. And because when that letter there is added in, or that symbol there is added in, the rest of this word here does not make any sense. But now there could be some word here that came down. We don't know. It's just unclear. And then you see several characters here, which are kind of half-washed, so we don't touch that. Right here you'll see in what appears to us sideways, MCI, but if you take an S, an old S, like on the front, and you turn it sideways, it looks like an M. So that would be an S, CI, or a Seke, or a Sege. It could mean a few different things. So this is what you have. We don't really know the pronouncement of this word. Catuliu Rick Archelaus. And the symbol there is unclear, but since we have C-L-O-S, we know what that means. Archelaus. Diu is a Gallic form of the word God or gods, and stem from the Indo-European, the root word, the agglutinative stem. The CTLUI, a verb form of the Celtic kados, to make holy, to make sanctified, to make sacred. Rich is noun. There's a form of the word rich, which means king. Archelaus is Archelaus, king of Macedon. All right? And he is the father of Philip II. And if he's the father of Philip II, that means that he is Alexander the Great's grandfather. So what does this say? Sanctified by the gods, King Archelaus. It's Gallic mint. And Paul deciphered this, I can't remember, but I think around 1999, 2000 or so, somewhere along in there. But we can see that the script is legible. This is not something that just goes everywhere. It's not something that just falls out of the sky. This is how this reads. And there is the decipherment of the front of this coin. On the back of the coin, there you see that symbol, which I believe is part of that whip or something. But you have it here, I-O-U-I-N, Usin. And you can clearly see that these are not made-up characters, all right? The U here is the same as the U there. The O there is the same on the other side, okay? This N is the same as that N. And same thing with the S. Eoin is Gallic. It means young or valiant in Indo-European. Usin is a form of the word Usu, Gallic form of cheerful, also a word for king. It could be good king, happy king. Here you go. Eoian, Usian, young king, valiant king, good king. You can take those words there and put them any which way you would want to, so that the grammar police can have at it. All right? Another one, copyright Schaffranke. So a lot of times word order can go anywhere, as we'll see a little bit later on. Now, there are still 3 other letters, which is the MCI, and I've written it like this, but when you see it up and down, that M is going to be an S, okay? S. But I'm putting it here as an M, which means the MCI, for those who can see it as an M, Sege, Seke, Gallic form of the word Sego, or Sege, means victory or victorious. The victorious one. The victorious. Remember we saw that on the Antiochus IV Epiphanes. The illustrious, the victorious. So this is a common inscription that we see on ancient coins, not only all over Europe, but here in North America as well. And this coin, again, came from the state of Maine, north of Moosehead Creek, Moosehead Lake, and it came from about 6 feet down in the ground. Several men were cutting a large northern oak down, and when the tree tipped over, a root popped up that had been deep in the soil, and this coin was just sitting right on that root. Now, we're going to go down to Tennessee. And remember when I showed you where the Holston River and the French River come together to form the Tennessee? Well, this is the Clinch River here. And the Clinch River joins up with the Holston down here. Okay? And we want to look at this. This is the Virginia-Tennessee border right here. All right? And we can start at the bottom here and see that this is Newman Ridge. And this Newman Ridge stretches all the way up here, okay? This ridge is about 32 miles long and probably about 6 to 7 miles wide in places. And the contour levels here are at intervals of like 130 feet. So each line is quite significant. And right here, we see the word Snake Hollow, right here, just below Newman's Ridge. All right, if we look right here, we see Sycamore Creek. All right, here's Sycamore Creek again, and here's Blackwater Creek. Now, Blackwater Creek flows this way, hooks around Newman Ridge, and then joins into the Clinch River here. Right here, we see Sneedville. And these are significant places, because we're going to talk about what they found in this bottom region here, in this white area, and in this white area here, along Blackwater Creek, Blackwater Swamp. And who they found along Newman Ridge. Now the Cherokee Indian tribe, they occupied lower Hancock County, and that's where we're looking at. Hancock County, Hancock County. Hancock County comes down in a V somewhat. It's kind of triangular shaped. And this area is extremely rough. And the Cherokee had a large presence down here, and they were pretty much warlike. They were fighting the other Indians, and they had, white men did not venture into there. It was pretty much off limits. It was, to do so would have meant for certain death. But we're just looking at this Newman Ridge because what they found out here is quite significant. And who they found up here was extremely significant. And you can find out other books and things about what we're fixing to discuss, but the best information comes from the book Hancock County, Tennessee and Its People from 1994. Well, what did they find? What did they find? When Columbus discovered America, there were 4 races of Indians living east of the Mississippi River, which is speculative. There could have been more than that. The principal tribes of these races were the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, the Creeks, the Choctaws, the Seminoles. The Cherokees claimed to own the land where Hancock County now is when it was first seen by white men in 1761. Now this is a date that the dates are going to get a little scrambled here, so I'll be pointing them out to you as we touch on these dates. This is 1761. Insofar as history discloses, there was a race of Indians who had occupied a great portion of the land on the south side of the Clinch and Holston Mountains prior to the Cherokees, who are almost unknown. That's on page 14 of this book. The Melungeons. Now, this particular piece here is done by the Melungeon Research Committee, who are basically board anthropologists or archaeologists that put this committee together. And I'm sure in some attempt to debunk whatever comes up, but they do come up with some really good stuff. The Melungeons are a Mediterranean-looking people first encountered in the mountains of western Carolina and East Tennessee in the late 1600s. Well, that kind of conflicts because we were just shown that they were found in 1761. But now we're going back to the late 1600s. So there's a little discrepancy there. And what we'll see is this particular book has many different accounts from newspapers, from other books and such, and other people's personal accounts. And now one of the guys that recorded them was including Tennessee Governor John Sevier. And John Sevier was the first governor of Tennessee. The first Melungeons lived in cabins. Well, this isn't normal for Native Americans. Had olive and copper colored complexions, straight or slightly wavy black hair, beards, and both brown and blue eyes. And this is recorded in the late 1600s. They spoke broken English and possessed English surnames, but claimed to be Portuguese for Portuguese, or Portuguese, as they pronounce it. Well, let's think about that for a second. If some English settlers or explorers had come across a people, and those people spoke Latin, or a vernacular form of Latin, there would be many words that would sound similar to our English. And a British that knew nothing about Latin would be able to pick up several words phonetically that these people were discussing. And if they interpreted what they were saying as Portuguese, Portuguese, I just wonder, throwing out some of my own speculation, could they have been saying Portuguese, Portuguese? Because Gadiz is a large ancient port in southern Spain. Portuguese, Portuguese. If they say Portuguese, how much different is it to say Portuguese? If it was Porta, Gadiz means from the port of Gadiz. So I'm just speculating there. I can't prove it. But it seems logical to me that if Portuguese, Portuguese, all you have to do is put a Z at the end of it. That's all. Pretty much simple there, isn't it? Now this is just a layout of the book, just showing you that there are 3 columns. Each page has 3 columns. So that's how come there's just so much information in this book, is that it is a wildly informative book. But here we have writing again. This is going to be page 36. The Melungeons were also known for their metal mining, smelting, and minting capabilities. Brandy Jack Mullins and his relative, Counterfeit and Saul Mullins, were legendary Melungeon silversmiths. Well, I guess they were pretty good at the trades, weren't they? Let's see a little bit more about these guys. And in fact, the first colonies of Melungeons were discovered by the French in the 1690s in the mountains of Upper East Tennessee, when the French and later John Sevier declared finding a dark-skinned European-featured people in these mountains, a people speaking broken English and claiming to be Portuguese or Portuguese, and occasionally claiming Carthaginian Moorish descent as well. That probably went from person to person. And down here we see, but the uncomfortable fact remained that the Melungeons were there to greet the English king's first hardy explorers. Well, who are these people? Where did they come from? How come they are completely swept asunder and they're not publicized anywhere? Do any of them exist today? What happened to them? Okay, and let's see, founding in 1607 by some 40 years. It is instead that a settlement consisting of, this is just their speculation, of Europeans, Berbers, Arabs, Jews, basically Mediterraneans, and Native Americans melded together in spirit and in flesh, and leaving literally thousands of descendants in the southern Appalachians. Finally, we continue to receive medical evidence strongly suggesting genetically based Mediterranean diseases among the Melungeon descendants. Well, looks to me like we're pretty much wrapping up that the Melungeons possibly came from the Mediterranean. Here we go back to Hancock County, the land of mystery. Most of the county remained isolated from its neighbors until the 20th century. That's the early 1900s. So, in essence, what they are saying is that because of these ridges and the way that the gorges come down and run from northeast to southwest, very difficult land to traverse, that this land was pretty much off limits until the early 19th century. I wouldn't even know if there's phone reception. I'm sure there's cell phone reception there now, but gosh even knows when they probably had phones and water and other amenities of modern times. Wood's diary of the journey of Needham and Arthur to the Allegheny region in 1673 states, 8 days' journey down the river lives a white people which have long beards and whiskers and wear clothing. So they're doing their explorations in the Appalachian, and they're either coming down the Clinch River or one of the other rivers, but they find, here on page 44, they write about, in 1673, a white people which have long beards and whiskers and wear clothing. And again, we have others that say that they had copper-colored complexions, that they were very peaceful. We'll see some more indications, but we're still building up to what they found and what else was discovered. We're just now looking at who they found on top of Newman's Ridge and in this area, back as far back as the white men recorded anything. Hancock County has been a land of mystery for the outside world. When John Sevier reported the existence of a dark-skinned people on Newman's Ridge in 1784, he started a controversy which made Hancock County the land of mystery. Who was these people? Bad English, isn't it? They were neither Negro, Indian, or white, but supposedly of Moorish descent, who claimed to be Portuguese, or Portuguese. I wouldn't think that they would claim that they were Portuguese, because at that time, Portugal wasn't really a country or a place. But I wonder if the word Portuguese actually doesn't come from Portuguese. Where else does the word Portuguese come from? We don't know. I'm just speculating, just throwing out an idea. As cited before from the same diary, a white people which have long beards and whiskers and wear clothing, Because Native Americans didn't have very much facial hair at all. Very, very scant. And they don't have chest hair either. Very, very scant. Are these the mystery people whose descendants still live on Newman's Ridge, Blackwater, and Sycamore? These are the creeks I showed you. Could they have been the descendants of the ancient Phoenicians who migrated to Portugal about 800 BC? But they're virtually unknown in modern day time. Virtually unknown. And I'm sure that out of all the books that I've got, this is the only one that actually has good, decent information. The others don't take into account, they're just all speculative, written by an anthropologist and wannabe archaeologists that don't make a hill of beans worth of sense. And here's from the Volunteer State, which is a book printed in the late 1800s. In the mountains of East Tennessee lives a distinct race, as different from all the other races on the Western Hemisphere as the Negro is different from the Indian. It is the race of the Melungeons, a mysterious race, few in numbers, whose origin is open to speculation. For many years, they were thought to be Indians, or a mixture of Indians and white people, whereby probably originated their name Melungeon, which means mixture. So far as is known, they were first found in Hancock County on Newman's Ridge soon after the Revolutionary War. That would put it 1780s, 1790s, somewhere along in there. This is on page 45. This is another caption taken from 45, taken from 1903. Much has been said and written about the inhabitants of Newman's Ridge and Blackwater in Hancock County, Tennessee. They have derisively been dubbed with this name Melungeons, which to me is a romantic name, the Melungeons. Who are you? I'm a Melungeon. Has a ring to it. The story starts as follows. About the people of Newman's Ridge and Blackwater Swamp. Just one fact is indisputable. They are such strange people. So this isn't an accident. There was something there, wasn't there? All right? Whatever they are, Welsh, English, Phoenician, Portuguese, or just Indian, the Melungeons are still on Newman's Ridge in Snake Hollow and are found in Hancock, Rhea, Hawkins counties. Where they are from, nobody knows. They are a quiet, strange, peaceful people. So I believe we have established enough information here that they did find a race of people. They'll make a bit of sense, and they are of some type of Mediterranean descendants. So now, let's go back to page 14. And we're talking about the area now of the Blackwater Swamp and Sycamore Creek, that area in there, down below on the western side. However, he says, had been inhabited many centuries before by a numerous population. At Everlasting is a large collection of graves made in a peculiar way, with heads inclined on the sides and footstones, the whole covered with a stratum of mold and dirt about 8 to 10 inches deep. At many springs, there was the appearance of walls enclosing habitations, the foundations of which are still visible everywhere the earth is cleared. So they found huge walls with buildings, houses, habitations inside these walls. These walls sometimes enclosed 6, 8, or even 10 acres of land. And he goes on to say that obviously the population there was 10 to 20 times more numerous than it was of the modern era. Well, what did they find at these walls? Okay, now let's jump back to page 45, and we'll meet Mr. Baker here. And he's got, see that grim, that chagrin smug on his face? He's a homeboy. He lives in Hancock County. And why is he so disappointed? Well, let's look at what he says. Archaeologists dispute everything you tell them, Baker said. I shut up. They didn't believe anything I told them. Well, what is he telling them? What is he trying to show them? What's he got up his sleeve? They're not paying any attention to what he says. He lives there. He's third generation there. His grandfather lived there. His father lived there. They were all farmers. What did they find? Baker's grandfather found an ancient Lydian coin bearing the likeness of Alexander the Great on his Blackwater farm. Well, if I was an archaeologist and I was from North America and I had gone to Princeton, Harvard, Yale, I would totally know. I don't want to hear that. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me you found an ancient coin, a Lydian coin, Lydian North African mint of Alexander the Great on your farm. They don't want to see that. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't fit our Columbus first deal. That doesn't fit with our all the Indians were savages. That doesn't fit with anything. But goes a Virginia scholar investigating the origins of the Melungeons living in southwest Virginia and northeast Tennessee asked, what is an ancient Lydian coin doing in the heart of Melungeon territory? Now, this next statement, the guy had to be really sharp on his snuff here. This scholar believes Melungeon ships escaped from Mullen, France to America during the time of, right there it is, Julius Caesar. And that's what we've been saying for a long time, 20 years running. When Baker talks about the early people in these bottomlands, he gives bone and flesh to the historian's theory. There's more to the Melungeon thing than I realized at the time, Baker said. It just makes me think there were people here before the Indians, people who knew the arts, trades, and forgot them through wars and hard times. Ladies, Jim, I would love to see the artifacts they found on that Blackwater farm. If they found Alexander the Great coin, I would just be in awe to see what else they found. Now we're going to look at James and Margaret Bagley because I am exceedingly partial to the Bagley clan. These are people from Hancock County. These are descendants of the Melungeons. And you look at James there. He's got a book there. You can see the word Russian War right there. So he's letting us know that he is literate. He can read. He's either a school teacher, politician, lawyer, preacher. He's a reader. He probably knows how to read and write, and he's showing us right here that he can prove it. He's proving it to us. Look at his wife here. What is she holding up? She's holding up her journal. She probably writes for the local newspaper, but she wants us to later know that she is literate also. These are both brilliant people. And it is the descendants of these two people here that gave me the book. So I feel like honoring them. Because that is how I was able to put the presentation together. For you to see that there is an ancient tribe of Mediterranean people along the Tennessee-Virginia line that nobody wants to talk about. No, man, those dadgum Melungeons, wish we could just wipe them, sweep them under the carpet like we do so many other things. But that's what I'm going to show you. The piece of carpet that they sweep things under is getting a lot larger. This is a Decipherment map of Illinois. Confluence of the Mississippi and Ohio are right down here. The Ohio goes up this way. Here's your Wabash again. The little Wabash comes up through here. This is the Skillet Fort region here. There are ancient settlements all down and through here. Okay? And up and through here is Cave and Rock, which is a megalithic cave. It's carved right into the limestone. It's a huge cave that goes back probably about 150 feet, and the opening is about the size of this stage here. And right here, we're going to go up this way, and we're going to see that the Cahokia Mound is right along in here. You go up a little bit farther, and the Illinois River breaks off here and goes up this way. Okay? And A lot of people don't realize it, but the Mississippi and the Illinois River run parallel to each other for about 45 miles. And there's a region in between them that's no more than 6 miles wide. There's a little divide there. And so there's a lot there. And there's a little town right here called Campsville. And we'll look at some of the mounds that they found right in here. And also, while we're here, we're going to see that the Tennessee River, where the Melungeons live in the headwaters, comes in right here. And you have the Cumberland River also. The Cumberland River goes through Nashville, Tennessee. Lots of nice artifacts and civilizations in Nashville. But we'll see again here the Wabash, the Ohio, the Mississippi, Illinois, and right here is the Missouri River. It comes in, hooks down to the south, and it hooks back around towards the west. And right down here is where the Kincaid Mounds are at. Now, this is 30, 40 miles upstream from where the Illinois and the Mississippi meet. And right here we have Campsville, Archaeological Research Center. And right along in here is where they found a lot of the artifacts, and also up in here. There's 3 large sites and several smaller sites. They found a vast, vast empire there. Same as like they did along Blackwater Creek and Swamp, just where thousands of people had lived at one time. And they started to excavate, and before they could get the first building completed, they had 4 buildings worth of artifacts that they had to store in other places. But this is up along the Illinois River. And we just want to point this out because we're going to look at it, we will come back to it. Now, I'm going down to southern Illinois right now. And there are several big islands inside the Ohio River. And through time, they do shift back and forth between floods, earthquakes, and various natural occurrences. These islands can drift miles each way. But the Kincaid Mound System, which is a fantastic mound system, is right along in here, okay? Along this, now this isn't the southernmost tip of Illinois, but it is for this area. And here's the Tennessee River right here coming. You just go up that river, which goes back down into Alabama before it curls back up into Tennessee. And it goes up to its headwaters. And here's the Cumberland that comes in from Nashville. So we're looking at the Kincaid Mounds right here. Well, now, let's go a little bit farther to the north, upstream. The Wabash breaks off from the Ohio back up into this area here, okay, up here at the top. It's not on here. But what we're going to look at is Cave and Rock is right here. Now, the legends of Cave and Rock are quite commonly known, that in an alcove in the roof of the cave, there's a way that you could get up inside there, and there was a room either created by man, carved out of the limestone, or not. I don't know. It's off limits today. But in the 1800s, different authors described what they found in that room is elephantine-type creatures, but not of the ones we have today. They had, there was a carving of a man in a Roman toga kneeling, another Roman in a toga doing another action, and several different other animals carved into the walls of this room. And it also had script, writing. And I would go so far as to say that that writing is very close to what you see in the Iberic script, the glossal script of France, your Phoenician, just a hodgepodge of the Mediterranean languages. Now, you'll see here, this is Cave and Rock Island right here. And this is Hurricane Island right here. And it's only called Hurricane Island because this is Hurricane Creek right here. But right here, we have an old city named Talu. Okay? Now, in the late 20s, early 30s, the University of Kentucky started conducting tests and excavations at the city of Talu, where 3 mounds come together, and there's a creek there that goes into the middle of them. They were going to build a school there, and they had to secure purchase and rights from the farmers. And they started to excavate, and they discovered that there was a civilization there of thousands of people. They had underground tunnels that went all the way to, it's about, I guess, close to half a mile, a little over a quarter of a mile from Talu, these mounds here, to the river. But they state that there was a tunnel, man-made tunnel, that went all the way to the river that could secure their escape should they be attacked and overwhelmed. And how they did that, I don't know. It could have been a creek that they just put rocks and stuff and sheathed over, and then just piled dirt on top of that. I would think that that would be more plausible than them actually carving a tunnel directly through the solid stone. But in the same books, they say that here where Talu is, they found another ancient civilization just to the north and 2 more just to the south. Well, since the Ohio River is nothing but one ancient civilization after another, from one end, I mean, just again. There's either a mound complex there today that's commercially advertised, or it's something like this where people have gone through, collected artifacts, then the Bureau of Ethnology says you can build your house here now. So people build their houses and their barns, a lot of times churches and modern-day graveyards, right in the center of some of these mounds. But in Talu, what is another thing that is particularly of interest in the legitimate book about Talu, which is about yay thick, well, of their discoveries of the excavations, is that they say, right here at Talu, and the town here, and the ancient town right here, these 4 towns right here, these 4 ancient settlements where they found foundations, huge buildings, large, vast houses, they don't fit anything. They can't pin the culture. The culture is unknown. That just means it doesn't fit Kincaid mounds. It doesn't fit anything. It doesn't fit their little schema or their design of how these ancient settlements along the Ohio should just perfectly fit together, one to the next to the next. They've got 4 right there that they cannot explain. So I want to keep that in mind. Talu. I hope that this is an ancient city that you've never heard of before. Spiro Mound in Oklahoma. They found a lot of copper at Spiro Mound and just incredible artifacts. Hand-tooled pieces that are just so fragile, if you look at them, they fall apart. But this is a pretty rare book, and I want to show you some of the pictures of the copper that they found in here. Now right here is a map showing where copper comes from in this country. So it's not just 1 spot, 2 spot, 3 spots. There are dozens and dozens of them. And the ones highlighted in the dark are the more major sites where they find a lot of copper. We can see here, this is along the Tennessee River here. Etowah comes into the Coosa, which forms the Alabama. And Moundville here is good. And they also found some along the Tombiji and Moundville up a little bit north of here. This is not all of the sites, but this is the major sites. And the really big ones are in dark print. They found copper in Peoria, Illinois. And look at all these places here. Alexander County. Oh, isn't that a coincidence? Right down there. So they found copper all over the southeast, and this is just the southeast. They have found copper in the northeast, Pennsylvania, New York, farther out west also. But this is just the map that's in this one book. Some of the pieces are spectacular. You notice the garments here. Fancy clothes. They're facing right. Most of them. Let's go and see the next one. This is excellent craftsmanship. I could not even draw that with a pencil if I had to on a piece of paper. And these people are engraving it either on wood or something, smashing it in. They're not really sure how these copper engravings came about. If they're etched, they don't know how they made the sheets. There's so much that's speculation. But they do show artisan and an appreciation of the arts. There we are. Now this is a good one here because it shows the tunic down here. The tunic down here. And his feet appear to be dancing. See how his hand is here? Appears to be dancing. So, I've got to be touchy about that button here. If I just touch it too hard, it goes several down the road. Boom. All right. This is Scott Walter and me. And Scott told me that, well, Harry, he wrote 2 books on the Kensington runestone, and he wrote a 2-inch thick book on the hooked X. Now, how someone can write an entire book on one alphabetic character from allegedly carved on an ancient stone, I don't know. I don't know how that works, but at least he says to me, he says, Harry, I've kicked the door down of the Columbus first issue. He said, now, he said, all you got to do is push it and walk through it. So, well, that's a little difficult to do. I'm a diffractionist. I'm so far out there, the diffusionist who believe that the Vikings came here first and the Chinese came in, they don't even like us. So we're pretty much out there on our own. All right, this is another book, Indians and Artifacts in the Southeast. This is a great book. This has got a lot of the Bureau of Ethnology, Smithsonian Institute, maps and essays and reports in it. And now we're going to look at some of the way that the bodies are buried. And I do this so that others in other parts of the country, say like the Northeast here, that you can get some kind of idea of how some of these graves looked. And if you get a mental picture of it here from this, because I'm sure there's not too many of these particular books available here, but to look at some of these, maybe you'll come across a book that is similar, that has pictures that are similar to these type of grave burials. Here's another one. They're buried in all types of design, and these are what we would call peculiar positions. And this is kind of what they found along there. And also, back in the early 1800s, there is a story out of documented stories out of Lexington, Kentucky, where the locals there actually found a cave that had mummies, Egyptian-styled preserved mummies. And that came from a little hill outside of, or cave outside of Lexington. And that the settlers of the late 1700s, they thought they were Indians, so they quickly went into the cave and pulled out all the mummies, and they burned them for posterity's sake, I guess. But that's recorded in the early 1800s. Now we're going to look at some of the things they found ceremonially. These pieces here come out of Moundsville, Alabama. Nice complex there. The mounds aren't real tall, but they are so distinct and so wonderfully constructed and so perfectly flat on top. And we're going to look at some of the artifacts that they found here. Looks like happy people with all these teeth. Beetle Bailey teeth. Here's Beetle here, up here. Now, here we're seeing pieces from Oklahoma, from Georgia, and from different places. We're seeing some of the ceremonial axes here. And these carved on shell, some of them are carved on copper, some of them are carved on shell. They're very fragile. I mean, whoever did these they were very meticulous. They were very accurate. The pieces, to create some of these pieces on bone and to carve them the way they did, I just don't see how they can. I'm very heavy-handed. I would have just crumbled them to begin with. But these are from all over the southeast. Ceremonial complex pieces. These are statues. I'm showing you statues because I'm going to show you more statues. And you can kind of see the style of these statues. All of these statues that you see here come from mounds in Nashville, Tennessee, along the Cumberland River, in and around Nashville. Spectacular pieces. Even though some people would say that it was crude, if you think, oh, that's a crude piece, well, here's a piece of rock, here's a hammer and chisel. You do one that's better. Now, these come from Florida graves. And I wanted to show them because we have something right there. And what is that? I don't know. That looks like some kind of fish. And you see here's two other kinds of animals that we have no idea. I have no idea what they look like or what they are. And here's another couple of animals. That could be some kind of a turtle with long legs or bird legs or something. It doesn't look like an animal to me, but I can tell that these other things are what they are. You can clearly see that that's a goose or some kind of bird of some sort, right? So are these just animals that we don't know what they are? And in particular, this guy right here. What is that? What kind of creature is that? It's got a nice looking head there. It's got a tail. Got wide, fat legs. Could actually be paddles. Is that a big turtles don't have tails like that. But this is in Florida, so it had to. There's no place in Florida that's more than 50 miles from the ocean or Gulf or anything. Wherever you're at in Florida, you're near water, except right up in the top of the central part. And even then, you're not that far away from water. I want you to see these animals, these animal carvings. Nobody knows what they are, but they are exceedingly peculiar. And now, I want to introduce the Thruston Tablet. It comes from the same book. And here, we start to see a different kind of ancient artifact. This is carved on stone, I believe it's 19 inches wide, and it is a scene. It is busy. Has a warrior here of some description, has a warrior here holding a shield up. This guy's got his axe. He's ready to cut this guy up or beat on him. Right here appears to be someone laying down or is crushed in defeat. And this right here is either two warriors in combat, or a man speaking to a woman, or a man speaking to a man. There's an apparition over here. And the Thruston Tablet Why haven't I heard of the Thruston Tablet before? You can Google it online. There's a little bit of information on it, which I'll discuss here. There's a problem with the Thruston Tablet. Actually, there's several problems with the Thruston Tablet. Not only is it a very busy, ongoing tablet, executed very, very well, it is a scene. It tells a story. The Thruston Tablet has no provenance. This fella, Dr. Thruston, just ends up with it at his museum near Knoxville, I believe it was, and they say that it comes from the Castilian Springs Mounds in Tennessee. Well, they don't know that. And if you Google that, the Thruston Tablet, you'll see that, hey, they don't have a provenance for it. They don't know where it came from. It could have been the Castilian Springs. They're not even sure if it came from Tennessee. They're okay sure that it did come from Tennessee, but they are not positive. They don't know who found it. They don't know where it was found. And they certainly do not know when it was found. It just popped up into this guy's hands about the late 1870s, I believe 1878. But there's another problem with the Thruston Tablet. All of the anthropologists, all of the archaeologists, completely across the board, have determined that it is authentic. That it is a real artifact, that it is old from prehistoric times, and even though it has no provenance, even though they don't know who found it, where it was found, it is for real. And I do agree that just because you don't know where something came from, it's that good, it's for real. And there's so much in that scene, gosh knows what all this depicts. It's sad that it's not more clear down here on the bottom, because that kind of looks like some kind of warrior. That kind of almost depicts another shield similar to that, with designs around it, square shield. You can clearly see this guy's head and his feet underneath. So there's minimum 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's another, looks like a person engraved on that. So it's got 4 or 5 people on it. That tells me that it is a scene. It is something that someone is trying to tell us down the road. And you're getting more into an educated type of craftsman concerning an artifact when you have something with as many characters and as much action. And that to me is more than what we would call still life. It's a story. If I'm going to call it the Cobras of Columbus, I guess I need to show you some more cobras. These are all cobras, provenance known very well from Illinois. I'll just let you look at those. I've got several more. I'm going to flash them up and I will show them to you. But that is obviously 2 cobras. Now your archaeologists say, oh, that's fake. That's fake. Well, what qualifies them to say anything is fake? I've met many archaeologists, and most of them haven't even found a piece of pottery or an arrowhead or anything for that matter. Nothing. And that's what a modern day archaeologist does when they're building a highway. They scrape through the mud looking for any little shred of ancient evidence they can. They didn't find nothing. There's another cobra. And there's script on the back of this one, which I'll show later. And even though the cobra's got his eyes, his nose, his mouth, and it has a character quality to it, there are a lot of these artifacts from Illinois that show a really good facial expressions, as we'll see later. Oh, this is all fake, Harry. You're showing fake artifacts. No. We have had enough authenticated at a forensic lab to be able to tell what is for real and what is not for real. And some of the stones from Illinois, they have been tainted. There's been things carved on them extra, which they're easy to see. You can see them coming in from across the room. There's another cobra. Showing a bird, probably a falcon or something. Very, very well executed. Shows all the belly scales. Shows design patterns across the back. Another Cobra of Columbus. And the pictures that I show in my presentation that have the red background, all of those pictures are taken by Miss Virginia Horrigan of New York City. What happened to her, we don't know, but she allowed me to use her pictures for whatever, as long as I make it clear that she took these photographs. And I really must anyway, because it adds to provenance. The fact that she was taking photographs of these artifacts in late summer 1987 is significant, because others took pictures in 1986, others took pictures later. And a lot of the pictures that I'll be showing also were taken by Scott Walter. Scott Walter has a vast collection of artifacts from Illinois. There's a small, this tablet here is not very tall. It's probably about 2.5 inches. Showing another cobra head on. There's another cobra. Now this is another photograph from Virginia Horrigan, because the person who developed the film on one of her film strips did something with the chemicals wrong, and the background came out yellow, even though this background here is actually red. Here's a priest holding the ankh and a cobra. I have this tablet here. This is a strange type of marble. It has gone through forensics, has been authenticated, and it is for sale. Now, I can't show too many cobras without showing you some rattlesnakes. I'm going to show you some rattlesnakes. There's one coiled up there. And I've got several more snakes for later in the program, but not these shown again. We'll show rattlesnakes doing different things. That stone's not very large, probably the size of half of a dollar bill. Another picture by Virginia Horrigan. There's a good viper there. It's got script all over it, and it's good script. We haven't worked on the decipherment of this tablet, but you know it's going to have something about that snake. Probably very powerful. And then we'll see here, though, that now we're starting to get more into the script. Okay, you see the chapstick here? That's Scott Walter. You see chapstick or a loop like that in the photograph, that means Scott Walter took the picture. But here, we start to see some script from here in North America. And what does it look like? It looks a little bit Greek, it looks a little bit Latin, it looks like Phoenician. Well, right there is Egyptian, that's Greek, that's Greek or Latin. And you have other, it's a mishmash. Then you see the circle cross there, which is used in Greek sometimes for a the. This is like a B. This would be an R. That'd be a short O or a short U. When you see a dot inside a vowel, it usually means that it's a short pronunciation or not really vocative. And here you see all these, that right there would be an E, but that right there, even though it's different direction, it'd be the same letter. And that's why in the Charles Fort book, when they're talking about the some of the inscriptions there, that the K's turned upside down or the K's turned backwards. Pretty much in ancient times, ancient languages, the letter K has the same pronunciation. It's only in modern day time that it's actually silent if it's at the beginning of some words. You know, English is just a horrible language. I'd hate to have to learn it. But you can see this script is fairly similar to the Iberic script. There's some other script that has come up to us from a friend of ours who's doing excavations in southern Italy, underneath the foot, the heel of Italy. And they found up in a cliff back in the 70s, I believe it was, late 60s or 70s. There's a high cliff there, and some people were there, and they started finding these tablets inside a cave, buried inside a cave. And it looks like a regiment that belonged to Hannibal. And so it's the same type of script. If they belonged to Hannibal from Carthage or Iberia or Spain, they would have written in this type of language, a mishmash between Punic and Latin and Greek. Whatever the phonetics were, that's what they put, and they had no problem going from language to language to language, because the whole Mediterranean is smaller than the U.S., so it's not like they had to go around the world. It's not like they had to go around the world to get here either. Here's another rattlesnake. And this particular stone here, like so many others, the carving on it is lifted out of the stone itself. It's not scratched into the stone, but it's the stone around it that has been removed via carving or inscription. It's another guy, and that'd be a long one. That guy there would probably be like 3.5, 4 feet long at least, but it clearly has the rattles. There's another guy, and you'll see down here the same type of script. And just in preliminary, there's a couple of words in here that appear very similar to one of the other viper, the previous viper rattlesnake stone. And there's the chapstick, so you know Scott Walter took this picture. Scott will grab anything he can to put next to it. And he has a much nicer camera than I had. When I started taking photographs of artifacts, I knew that there were some collections that I would only see one time. And back in the 90s, we didn't have digital cameras where we could just snap a bunch of pictures of one stone and then pick one. You had film. Film had to be developed. It was very costly. So I'm going to somebody's house. I would set up my lights, set up my apparatus to shoot the photographs, and take several rolls of film and do my best to take 2 or 3 shots of an artifact to get one good one. But if you're shooting artifacts, several hundred artifacts, it's very costly. Thank goodness for digital cameras. And there is Felicity, my mascot. And towards the end of the show, or the present program, we'll learn why we know she's a female. We will know where she comes from, how she got there, and who she is. And I think she's rather handsome. But I always have to have something a little twisted in a program. So this is my twisted mascot. Not offending you, Felicity. And that concludes our first presentation. Are there any questions?
Positioning of the snakes, you find any significance in that, the way the head is and the tail? Because
No.
there are some designs.
There are so many artifacts depicting animals, which I will show a dozen or so later. Out of over 4,000 artifacts that I've seen, probably that I've got photographs of, 3,500, they go all over the place.
How about the positioning of the right or the left, where they're faced? In the Egyptian things, they usually symbolize what side they come from, like the west or the east.
I don't know. I'm not sure. But you do have a point. A lot of the animals do face more towards the left than the right. Animals face left, people face right. And scenes can either start from the left or right. Doesn't matter. So we can take a break.
Spread those artifacts.
Yeah. Pardon me? What about Mr. History Teacher? Did you like any of it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm surprised that you didn't point out